My name is Claire Whitmore, 34, married into legacy, only to find myself seated by the restrooms. The Caldwells always knew how to smile while cutting you out. No harsh words, no slammed doors, just seating charts and silence. It started with breakfast. Not forgotten, just displaced. A quiet table near the hallway, a vase of lilies trying to make it look deliberate. Nathan didn't defend me. He called it tradition. And I sat there, alone, with a perfect manicure and a heart slowly splintering. If you've ever been sidelined so politely, it almost felt like your fault. Stay with me, because what they called family values. I called erasure in slow motion. The morning sunlight spilled across the marble floors of the Ocean View Resort, painting long golden streaks that clashed sharply with the coldness in my chest. The sea outside shimmered like a postcard, perfect and unreachable, just like everything in this family. I adjusted the strap of my dress and walked slowly toward the breakfast area, heels tapping softly over the polished stone, heart pounding faster than I liked. A server with a polite smile intercepted me. "Mrs. Whitmore?" he asked, and I nodded. "This way, please." He gestured, leading me not toward the grand table near the bay windows, where the rest of the Caldwell clan was already seated, but to a small, round table nestled unceremoniously near the hallway leading to the restrooms. There was a vase of lilies on it. A nice touch if you didn't know what it meant. I blinked. Is this a mistake? No, ma'am. Mr. Nathan Caldwell said this would be more convenient. His smile didn't reach his eyes. I turned. There they were. Susan, Richard, Lauren, and of course Nathan. All seated at the main table, their plates half full, napkins folded perfectly. Susan was laughing lightly at something Lauren had said. No one even glanced in my direction. I hesitated. A beat too long. Then I saw Nathan stand, walk over, not too fast, not too close, and put his hand on my elbow like he was guiding a confused child. "Claire, come on. It's just breakfast." I opened my mouth, closed it. "Is there a reason I'm not sitting with you?" His smile was tired, tight. "It's how Mom does things. Don't make this a big deal, okay? Just for today." "Right. Just for today." I sat, alone, back straight, face arranged in something neutral, something pretty. I could still hear their laughter. The waiter poured my coffee with the kind of pity I didn't want to see. From the corner of my eye, I saw Jade. She stood near the reception area, pretending to scroll on her phone, but her eyes flicked toward me, sharp, concerned, alert. She wasn't supposed to interfere, but her posture said everything. "Are you okay?" I wasn't, but I smiled. Eggs arrived. I took a bite. Warm, flavorless. Susan glanced over once, just once, and raised her glass slightly as if in mock cheer. Lauren followed her lead with a smirk so sugary it hurt my teeth. Nathan, back in his chair, didn't meet my gaze. "Family tradition," he had said. I tried to remember if the Caldwells had ever considered me family. Every holiday, every function. I'd been present, yes. But included? A conversation from last Christmas whispered through me. "The seating is set, Claire. Maybe next year." "There's a family photo, Claire? Can you take it?" "We just thought it would be easier if you didn't join the inheritance call. Nathan can explain everything." It hadn't started this morning. It had just gotten harder to ignore. I took another sip of coffee, fingers trembling slightly against the cup. I looked down at my perfectly manicured nails, then back up, and for a brief second, I caught my reflection in the polished silver teapot beside me. I didn't recognize the woman staring back. Susan was now orchestrating some toast, her voice sharp and clear. "To the first day of summer and to our family. May this week bring joy and memories." A gentle chorus of "Hear, hear" followed. I wasn't included. Nathan's glass barely touched his lips, and something inside me moved. Just a slight shift, like a tremor before an earthquake. I'd come here to be with my husband, to make peace with the things I'd quietly accepted. But all I felt was distance. It was just breakfast, right? Then why did I feel like something inside me had snapped? I'm sorry, Claire. This afternoon is for the Caldwell women only. I paused halfway through tying the sash of my robe. My hand froze, stilling the soft silk at my waist. Susan's voice was steady, light. Her smile, as usual, was tight, almost too perfect. Behind her, Lauren stood with arms folded, already wrapped in a designer spa robe and flip-flops that matched her manicure. Both of them blocked the entrance to the spa's private wing like guards of a kingdom I apparently didn't belong to. I thought, I began, then stopped. What did I think? That marriage had made me one of them? That a shared last name opened doors instead of closing them in my face? Susan tilted her head, eyes narrowing ever so slightly. It's a little tradition. The Caldwell women always gather here before the banquet. You know, to connect. Lauren leaned closer, adding with a saccharine smile, "It's nothing personal, just original bloodline stuff. Heritage bonding, we like to call it." I felt the flush rise up my neck. I looked over my shoulder for Nathan, but he wasn't there. He'd vanished after brunch with the words, "Mom wants the afternoon to be easy." She thought, "Maybe you'd enjoy some time to yourself?" Time to myself. I blinked hard, nodding. Of course. I wouldn't want to intrude. Susan's face brightened like I'd passed a test. "You understand. That's what I've always liked about you." I stepped aside as they glided past, flanked by two wives of distant cousins, women I barely knew, who offered me soft, apologetic glances but said nothing. Their silence was a statement in itself. They still walked in. I didn't. The spa doors whispered shut behind them, and I stood alone in the hallway, arms limp at my sides. A resort staff member passed me, pretending not to notice the scene. The floral aroma of eucalyptus and lavender wafted from under the door, almost mocking. So that was it. No seat at breakfast, no place at the spa, no role at the banquet. I wandered aimlessly through the halls, passing gleaming walls, polished floors, and glass cabinets filled with awards and photos of past Caldwell generations. It was a shrine, really. A curated family legacy, one I had never been invited to join. Outside, the sun blazed over the horizon, but I felt cold. I drifted toward the beach, toes sinking into warm sand, eyes on the endless line where sea met sky. And then, soft footsteps behind me. I turned to see Jade. She was dressed casually, hair tucked under a sun hat, but her eyes were focused, piercing in that quiet way she had. She didn't say, "Are you okay?" Or, "That was unfair," like everyone else might have. Instead, she handed me something. Her phone, screen already lit up. "I know it's weird," she said. "But when things got hard with my old team, this helped. You don't have to send it to anyone. Just record your thoughts. When you say it out loud, it feels different. Clearer." I stared at the app. Simple interface, red circle blinking, an auto-recording tool. One tap, and it would log everything. "I'm not sure what I'd even say," I murmured. Jade smiled. "Say whatever they won't let you." I took the phone, hesitated, then downloaded the same app onto mine. I didn't even know why. It felt ridiculous, childish even. But something about the gesture, the quiet resistance of it, stuck with me. Jade left me with a nod, her sandals crunching lightly as she walked back up the dunes. I watched her go, then looked at the app again. My thumb hovered over the screen, but I didn't press record. Not yet. I returned to the beach, alone again, letting the salt air dry the sting in my eyes. I kicked off my sandals and walked slowly along the edge of the water. The ocean didn't care who I was or wasn't. It didn't notice who sat at which table. And maybe that was comforting, because I was done asking for a place. Let them have their spa, their rituals, their polished masks. I walked farther, until the voices from the resort were distant murmurs. I didn't realize Jade had just handed me the first tool I'd use to take my power back. You know what I'd do if I were Nathan? Divorce her quietly. Get the apartment, keep the accounts, cut the dead weight. I stopped mid-step. The hallway was silent except for the hush of air conditioning and the low hum of voices behind the double doors to the left. The polished brass plaque read, "Private Meeting Room, Caldwell Reservation." It was late afternoon, and I had come upstairs looking for Nathan, thinking maybe we could leave early. Maybe this trip was a mistake from the start. But now I didn't move. Lauren's voice had that usual sing-song tone, but the words sliced like razors. She adds nothing. Can't have kids, no social finesse. I mean, it's been 4 years and she still doesn't know how to host a dinner. A beat of laughter followed. Then Susan. He's being too soft. Claire would sign anything if we say it's for tax purposes. I already asked the firm to prepare the draft. No shared assets, no alimony. We keep the apartment. She walks away with her little hobby job and her feelings. I stood behind the door, breath held so tight it hurt. I had no idea how long I'd been recording. The app Jade installed activated automatically when I opened the memo this morning. Jade had said, "Let it run." You never know what people say when they think you're not listening. I hadn't thought much of it then. But now, Richard's voice, finally. Low, gruff. She was never one of us. Nathan's too weak to handle it. I'll talk to him. No one objected. Just a pause like they were reading off a script already memorized. I didn't cry. I didn't push the door open and scream. I didn't gasp or drop my phone. I just stood there. The corridor stretched long and empty behind me, bathed in amber sunlight from the floor-to-ceiling windows. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears, but outwardly I was motionless. Frozen. My reflection in the glass panels beside me was unreadable. The recording app was still running, silently saving every cruel syllable, every plan, every betrayal. I had gone looking for Nathan to talk about leaving quietly. Instead, I found out they were planning to erase me like a stain. And worse, they had already decided who got to keep what. I backed away from the door slowly. My shoes made no sound on the plush carpet. My body moved on instinct, but my mind was somewhere else entirely. Above it all, detached, watching from a height. I passed a housekeeper near the elevator. She smiled politely. I nodded back. When the doors opened, I pressed the button for the ground floor. The suite number etched into my mind. 7C. I wouldn't forget it. Not now. Outside, the sea breeze hit me harder than expected. I inhaled sharply. The salt air grounded me, reminded me I was real. A gull screeched in the distance. I walked past the pool, past the gift shop, past the smiling guests who had no idea that on the second floor of this resort, a woman was being dismantled behind closed doors, legally, surgically, without an ounce of shame. But I wasn't falling apart. I was aligning. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just smiled to myself. Now I knew exactly what I had to do. I left the room key on the nightstand and texted Nathan. You'll find the suite empty, just like this marriage. I didn't wait for a reply. The morning light slid through the curtains like silk, brushing against the beige carpet of the Ocean View suite. It was barely 6 a.m., and the entire Caldwell family was likely still asleep, or nursing their hangovers from last night's celebration dinner, to which I was naturally not invited. I moved silently, placing my folded clothes into the suitcase with the kind of precision that only comes from exhaustion laced with clarity. No trembling hands, no last-minute doubts. I zipped up the bag and wheeled it to the door. On the dresser, I placed my resort key card, perfectly aligned beside the unused spa voucher Lauren had accidentally left for me yesterday. The absurdity almost made me laugh. I took a photo of it, not for evidence, just closure. Then I pulled out my phone. Text to Jade. Plan B? Her reply came instantly. Jade, room ready. No one knows where you are. No questions, no judgments, just action. A soft knock from housekeeping echoed in the hallway as I stepped outside and pulled the door shut behind me, gently but firmly. That sound, it felt final. I didn't look back. Downstairs, the lobby was empty except for a lone concierge and a sleepy bellhop. I nodded politely but declined assistance. In less than 5 minutes, I was in the back seat of a black town car, the leather cool beneath my fingertips, the air filled with the soft scent of citrus from a discreet air freshener. The car pulled away from the Ocean View Resort, and just like that, I was gone. Montauk Point was 40 minutes down the coast. I watched the shoreline roll past, dotted with early morning joggers, fishermen setting up for the day, gulls diving into waves that glistened like poured glass. The further we drove, the easier it became to breathe. When we arrived, Jade was already waiting in the lobby. No clipboard. No dramatic reunion. Just a quiet nod and a hand lightly placed on my suitcase. "Upstairs," she said. "Corner suite." The room was sun-drenched and serene, with white linen curtains drifting like breath in the open windows. The ocean looked different here. Less like a backdrop and more like a promise. I dropped my bag by the door and stepped out onto the balcony. Below, a woman in a wide-brimmed hat walked a golden retriever across a pebbled path lined with beach roses. The breeze smelled of salt and sagebrush. I stood there for a while, arms folded on the railing, eyes following the tide. No schedule, no roles to perform. Just me. Inside, my phone buzzed. Nathan, where are you? This isn't funny." I turned off the screen and placed the phone face down on the table. A quiet moment passed. Then I remembered the app. I hadn't opened it since yesterday. Not really. I had let it run, forgotten it, walked with it pressed against my hip while overhearing my marriage's obituary. Now, for the first time, I tapped the icon. There it was. The file was still there, time-stamped and titled automatically. June 17th, Confroom, Caldwell. I pressed play. Lauren's voice, Susan's planning, Richard's quiet cruelty. All of it clear as crystal, like they had whispered into a courtroom mic. I paused midway. Not because it hurt, though it did, but because I realized something. I didn't need this for revenge. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But knowing it existed, it changed everything. Now I had proof. Not for revenge, for clarity. They thought I'd vanished, but I walked in wearing the red dress they once said was too bold. Every head turned as I stepped into the Crystal Bay banquet hall. The chandeliers above shimmered like frozen fireworks, casting golden reflections on glasses filled with Chardonnay. A string quartet played some forgettable melody in the corner. The Caldwells were in their element, toasting Richard and Susan's 40th wedding anniversary like royalty holding court. But the music dipped for just a second. And that was all it took. Silence spread in ripples, moving from one guest to another as eyes locked onto me. The woman they thought had disappeared. The one they thought too fragile to endure. Too quiet to fight back. Too bland to matter. Until now. I walked past tables dressed in ivory linen, heels clicking with deliberate rhythm. I didn't rush. The red silk of my dress flowed behind me like a banner. The same dress Lauren once called attention-seeking. The one Susan said wasn't elegant enough for family functions. Now it was the only thing anyone could look at. Nathan stood near the dais, frozen mid-conversation with a second cousin. His expression morphed from confusion to disbelief. He looked around. For confirmation? For help? But no one moved. I reached the center of the room, just below the elevated platform where the family sat. I didn't need a microphone. "I know I wasn't on the program," I began, "but that makes sense. I've never really been part of the script." Whispers, gasps. Chairs shifted. I felt them squirm before I even looked their way. I came tonight not for drama or revenge. I came to withdraw from a story I was never written into. Susan's fork clinked sharply against her plate. "Claire, that's enough. This is a private family event." I met her eyes, unblinking. "Exactly. Lauren laughed nervously. You're making a scene. No, I said. For once, I'm making an exit. Richard folded his arms, cold, calculating, as if mentally inventorying the damage. Susan tried again, this time with a saccharine tilt to her voice. You should be grateful, dear. Being a Caldwell means something. I smiled. It used to. To me, not anymore. The room seemed to shrink, tension folding in on itself like a collapsing tent. I didn't need the recording. I didn't need receipts or threats or theatrics. I just needed truth. And my voice. I don't need this name to know my worth. I don't need your approval, or your invitations, or your spa traditions and side tables. You may keep all of it, because I am keeping myself. I let that linger. The quartet had stopped playing. Even the servers had frozen at the edges of the room. Then I turned. Nathan took a halting step forward, eyes wide. Claire, I didn't know they— You knew, I said gently, almost kindly. You just chose silence. You chose comfort. You chose them. He swallowed hard, hands twitching at his sides. I didn't mean for it to be like this. You didn't betray me because you were evil, I said. You betrayed me because you were weak. And it was true. That, more than anything, was what had snapped me in two. He looked like he'd been slapped, like the breath had been knocked out of him. But I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't anything. I turned back toward the exit. My heels didn't click as sharply this time. The carpet had changed beneath my feet. Or maybe I had. A door opened ahead, and I walked through it without looking back. The best part? I didn't even feel sad anymore. They thought I'd vanished, but I walked in wearing the red dress they once said was too bold. The hush that swept across the Crystal Bay banquet hall was instantaneous. One by one, heads turned, forks froze midair, and glasses hung in suspended cheers as I stepped through the gilded archway. The air was heavy with perfume, candle wax, and expectation. But none of them expected me. I walked in slowly, each step deliberate, the hem of my red silk dress whispering against the marble floor. I didn't smile. I didn't look for approval. I let the tension work for me, stretching the silence like a taut thread ready to snap. Susan, in her navy taffeta gown, blinked twice before her lips tightened. Richard's brows furrowed. Lauren's smile twisted into something sour. And Nathan. Nathan looked like he'd just seen a ghost he thought he'd buried with paperwork and polite lies. I made my way past the clusters of guests, their conversations now hushed murmurs trailing in my wake. The chandeliers above sparkled like eyes watching everything. I didn't speak until I stood directly in front of the head table, facing them, the Caldwells in full dynasty pose. I know I'm not on tonight's program, I said, my voice carrying without effort. But then again, I never really was. A few gasps, a clink of silver against china. Somewhere, a violinist faltered. I won't take much of your time. I came only to say this. I withdraw from the story I was never written into. Lauren rolled her eyes, a scoff barely concealed behind her champagne flute. Oh, please. Susan lifted her chin. Claire, this is neither the time nor the place. But it is the truth, I said, and truth fits anywhere. Nathan stood abruptly, half reaching toward me. Claire, let's talk. No. I turned to him. You had your turn. Susan's voice came sharp and forced. You should be thankful. Being a Caldwell comes with a legacy, a place. I no longer need them to know my worth. I cut in, calm and clear, because I finally do. My gaze swept over them. Lauren's rigid posture, Richard's barely concealed disdain, Susan's curated grace cracking at the edges. And I didn't flinch. I didn't cry. I didn't crumble. I was not here to beg for space. I was here to vacate it. Turning slowly, I began to walk away. Claire, Nathan's voice cracked. He stepped off the platform, catching up just as I reached the doors. I stopped. turned to face him, just once more. You didn't betray me because you were evil, I said, looking directly into his eyes. You betrayed me because you were weak. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. I didn't wait for a reply. I walked out into the night, my dress catching the breeze, the city lights stretching far ahead, clean, open, untouched by the Caldwells. The best part? I didn't even feel sad anymore. The red dress wasn't just a choice. It was a declaration. In a room built to uphold appearances, Claire tore down the illusion with nothing but composure and truth. When injustice is met with quiet defiance, even the most polished facades crack beyond repair. Sometimes the most powerful revenge is simply walking away with nothing left to prove. Because no lie lasts forever when truth walks in uninvited. They thought I'd vanish quietly, but I left a silence they couldn't ignore. No tantrum, no threats. Just one woman in red, choosing herself over legacy. And now? Let them keep their name. Because I've reclaimed something far more valuable. My voice. If you've ever been made to feel small in a room you helped hold together, tell me in the comments. Were you ever left out so gracefully? You almost said thank you? And don't forget to subscribe. Because sometimes the softest goodbye makes the loudest echo.